Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone. Some of the hardest goodbyes are the ones where love is still alive, but staying would cost you yourself. You've been carrying the weight of love, believing that if you love someone enough, everything will work out. You may have convinced yourself that love is the answer to every argument, every misstep, every moment of distance or hurt. But the truth is, love alone cannot fix what doesn't belong to you to fix. Sometimes love is abundant, sincere, and real, and yet it still cannot keep two paths together. The hardest part is realizing that loving someone deeply does not mean staying in a situation that erodes who you are at your core. There's a quiet, almost imperceptible feeling that creeps in over time, a tension in your chest, a heaviness in your shoulders, a constant exhaustion that you cannot shake. It's the body signaling that something is misaligned, and yet the mind fights it. It whispers, if I just love harder, it will be enough. If I just sacrifice more, if I compromise again, maybe it will work this time. You begin shrinking in ways you don't even notice, sacrificing small joys, avoiding confrontation, silencing your needs, all in the name of keeping the love alive. The real insight comes when you stop blaming yourself for loving, when you recognize that love itself is not failing. The failure, if there is one, is in the misalignment, the recognition that two people, despite the depth of care and devotion, are no longer walking on compatible paths. Love is not the problem. Your awareness of what you need and what you deserve is the compass. It takes courage to admit that sometimes loving someone means letting them go, not because your heart is empty, but because staying would empty it. A reflective thought that can anchor you is this: love didn't fail, alignment did. It reminds you that walking away doesn't negate the love you felt. It doesn't erase the laughter, the memories, or the lessons. It simply honors your own truth. A practical step is to begin noticing your body's signals, to pay attention to how it feels around this person. Are you tense, drained, anxious? These are not signs of weakness. They are the quiet messages of your inner self pointing you toward honesty and authenticity. Ask yourself gently, am I shrinking to keep this connection alive? Start naming the ways you have compromised and observe what it costs you. Awareness is not a judgment. It's the first step toward reclaiming your life while still holding space for the love that exists in your heart. There is a heaviness that comes from carrying guilt, a weight that sits on your chest and whispers constantly that you are wrong, selfish, or cruel for choosing yourself. It is a quiet, subtle voice at first, easily dismissed as the inner workings of your conscience. But over time, it grows louder, more insistent, more suffocating. You may have been conditioned to believe that putting your own needs first is a betrayal of love, a failure of loyalty, or a sign that your heart is not capable of true devotion. And so, when the moment comes, the moment you recognize that walking away may be the healthiest, most necessary choice, you are met not with clarity, but with an overwhelming storm of guilt. Guilt disguises itself as duty. It convinces you that staying, even when it drains you, is the moral choice. It whispers that love means sacrifice above all else, that loyalty is measured by the degree to which you suffer for another person's presence in your life. And yet, this is not love. This is not devotion. This is an expectation rooted in fear, shame, and the unspoken belief that your worth is dependent on the happiness or comfort of someone else. The inner struggle here is not about the other person. It is about the story you have told yourself about what it means to be good, to be loving, to be deserving. You feel the guilt intensely because somewhere deep down, you've been taught that loving someone is synonymous with giving everything, even if it costs you everything. This guilt is often amplified by memory, by nostalgia, by the weight of what once was. You remember the laughter, the intimate conversations, the moments when it felt like the universe had aligned and everything was right. You remember promising yourself that you would never leave, that your love was permanent, unshakable. And now the thought of walking away, no matter how necessary, feels like a betrayal of the past, a denial of the beauty that once existed. You fear that choosing yourself will be interpreted as cruelty or indifference, that the act of self-preservation will be misunderstood as rejection. You fear being judged by others, by friends or family, for prioritizing your own well-being. But here lies a quiet truth, one that is often obscured by the fog of guilt. Choosing yourself is not betrayal. It is not cruelty. It is not the absence of love. In fact, it can be one of the most loving acts you perform, not for the other person, but for yourself. The insight here is subtle yet powerful. Guilt is not proof that you are wrong. It is proof that you are growing, proof that you are beginning to honor your own boundaries, your own needs, your own integrity. It is not a signal to stay. It is a signal to pay attention, to listen to the deep wisdom of your own heart, which knows what you can carry and what you cannot. The process of releasing guilt begins with awareness. Awareness that loving yourself does not diminish your capacity to love another. Awareness that the fear of being judged or abandoned by others does not dictate the moral correctness of your choice. Awareness that your emotional and mental health are not negotiable commodities, and that true love, love that is real, sustaining, and respectful, does not ask you to sacrifice your well-being. These are truths that may feel radical or uncomfortable at first because they go against the stories you have been told about loyalty, duty, and selflessness, but they are truths nonetheless. It is also important to recognize the difference between guilt and responsibility. Responsibility is grounded in reality, in concrete actions that you can influence. Guilt is an emotional reaction that often has no basis in fact. It is the mind's way of tying your value to the comfort or approval of others. When you carry guilt for walking away, ask yourself, am I responsible for someone else's choices, feelings, or life trajectory? Most often the answer is no. You are responsible for your own life, your own boundaries, your own growth. Once you separate these two concepts, you create a space where compassion for yourself can exist alongside compassion for others. You can acknowledge the pain that leaving may cause without allowing that pain to dictate your decision. One of the most challenging aspects of this work is confronting the fear that follows guilt. You fear that leaving will make you a bad person. You fear that you will be perceived as selfish or unloving. You fear that walking away will create loneliness or regret. And yet fear is not a reliable guide. Fear is the mind's way of protecting you from discomfort, but it often confuses what is truly harmful with what is merely difficult. Guilt is a companion to fear, magnifying its intensity and making it difficult to see clearly. But if you sit with the fear, if you acknowledge it without judgment, you begin to see that fear and guilt do not define your worth, nor do they dictate the morality of choosing yourself. Reflection is a powerful tool in this process. Writing, speaking, or thinking through your feelings can help you distinguish between the messages of guilt and the messages of truth. Ask yourself, am I feeling guilty because I'm harming someone? Or am I feeling guilty because I'm finally acting in alignment with my own needs? Often the answer reveals that guilt is a signal of growth, not wrongdoing. The act of leaving, of setting boundaries, is not about abandoning love. It is about protecting it and protecting yourself in the process. It is about understanding that love that asks you to disappear, shrink, or compromise your authenticity is not sustainable love. Practical action is equally important. Begin by naming the guilt without letting it control you. Speak it out loud. I feel guilty because I am choosing myself. I feel guilty because I am prioritizing my well-being. Allow yourself to feel it fully without trying to erase it or explain it away. Then counterbalance this acknowledgement with affirmations of truth. Choosing myself is necessary. Choosing my boundaries is necessary. Choosing my peace is necessary. This duality, holding space for your emotions while grounding yourself in reality, is the essence of releasing guilt. Another key practice is redefining what loyalty and love mean. True loyalty is not about martyrdom. It is about integrity. True love does not demand self-erasure. It encourages growth and respect. When you leave a situation with love intact, when you make your departure an act of courage rather than anger, you honor both yourself and the other person. You show that love can exist without possession, without attachment to outcomes, without the illusion that staying at all costs is virtuous. Love is not weakened by boundaries. It is strengthened by clarity, honesty, and respect for the self. Over time, the repetition of this process, the awareness, the reflection, the naming of guilt, and the establishment of boundaries leads to profound emotional resilience. You begin to understand that guilt is not a punishment, it is a teacher. It teaches you that you are evolving, that your sense of self-worth is no longer negotiable, that your capacity for love is expansive enough to leave someone without erasing your feelings. You learn to hold space for complex emotions, sadness for what you are leaving behind, gratitude for what was shared, and pride for the courage it takes to prioritize your own life. Ultimately, releasing guilt is about reclaiming your authority over your own heart. It is about understanding that love is not a license to destroy yourself in the name of someone else's happiness. It is about learning that you can walk away without losing yourself, and that doing so is not a failure, but a triumph of emotional intelligence and courage. And when you finally reach this place, you feel lighter, not because the love is gone, but because the burden of guilt has been lifted. You are no longer shackled by the expectation that your life must serve another at the expense of your own authenticity. You are free to love, to heal, and to grow. A simple, practical way to integrate this insight into your daily life is to practice naming guilt as it arises, observing it without judgment, and then taking one small action that aligns with your own well-being. Whether it is setting a boundary, leaving a toxic conversation, or simply giving yourself permission to rest, each act reinforces the truth. Your love and your self-respect are not mutually exclusive. They can coexist, and in learning to honor both, you step into a deeper, more authentic form of love. One that is as much about the care you give yourself as the care you give others. Courage is not the loud, dramatic act we often imagine it to be. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers in quiet moments, in the silent spaces of your mind, when you are faced with a choice that feels impossibly difficult. Courage shows up when the world expects you to conform, when everyone around you thinks staying is the safer, easier option, and yet something inside you insists that you cannot compromise your truth. The kind of courage we are talking about here is quiet, steady, and deeply intimate. It is the courage that rises in your chest like a gentle flame when the world is trying to convince you to extinguish it. When you decide to walk away, even when love is present, courage is required because fear is inevitable. Fear of loneliness, fear of judgment, fear of being perceived as selfish or heartless, fear of regret. You may replay in your mind every scenario that could go wrong, every consequence that could follow, every reaction you might provoke. The mind becomes a battlefield of what ifs. But courage is not about silencing these fears. Courage is about acknowledging them, sitting with them, and still taking the step that aligns with your integrity. It is about making choices from a place of authenticity rather than obligation, even when your heart trembles at the thought of loss. The inner struggle here is profound. It is the tension between desire and necessity. You desire connection, intimacy, and love, yet you recognize that remaining in a relationship or situation that no longer honors your well-being is destructive. You long for the comfort of what is familiar, for the illusion of stability, yet your soul senses that true stability comes not from holding on, but from stepping forward. Courage is what allows you to act in alignment with that truth, even when every fiber of your being screams to stay, even when every external voice tells you that leaving is wrong. One of the most challenging parts of courage is understanding that it is not always recognized or validated by others. Walking away quietly, without drama or confrontation, can be met with misunderstanding or criticism. People may label you as selfish, unloving, or insensitive, not understanding the internal labor it took to reach this decision. Courage does not seek external approval, it seeks internal integrity. It is the willingness to honor your own life and values, even when doing so is lonely and misunderstood. There is a quiet power in this, the realization that you do not need permission to protect your peace. Reflection helps in recognizing this courage. Take a moment to observe yourself, the way you have resisted the urge to compromise your values, the moments you held firm even when fear was screaming at you, the times you prioritized truth over comfort. These are the moments that define your courage. They are subtle, often invisible to the outside world, yet they shape the essence of who you are. Courage is not always accompanied by applause. It is measured by the quiet steadfastness of your choices, the consistency with which you honor yourself when no one else is watching. A reflective line that can anchor you through this process is, walking away is often the bravest way to stay honest. It captures the paradox that true courage is not in clinging to what is familiar or forcing love to persist against the tide, but in remaining truthful to yourself even when it is painful. It is a courage that is not loud, that does not demand recognition, but that resonates in the deepest parts of your being, in the knowledge that you are living in alignment with your values. Practical steps can help cultivate this courage. Start by identifying one area in your life where fear has dictated your choices. Observe it without judgment. Ask yourself, am I staying because it is safe or because it is right? Am I acting from fear or from authenticity? Naming the fear and examining it reduces its power and allows your internal compass to guide you. Next, take one small step toward integrity, something that aligns with your truth, no matter how uncomfortable it feels. Each action, each decision strengthens your courage muscle, teaching you that discomfort is not the enemy. It is the sign that you are moving in alignment with yourself. Courage also requires self-compassion. It is not about punishing yourself for feeling fear, guilt, or sadness. It is about holding yourself gently, acknowledging that stepping into your truth is difficult work. You may stumble, hesitate, or second-guess your choices, and that is natural. Courage is not perfection, it is persistence. It is getting up after every doubt, reaffirming your boundaries, and honoring your need for peace even when the world challenges it. Another essential aspect of courage is patience. You cannot rush the process of leaving, of setting boundaries, or of redefining your relationships. Courage is steady, not hasty. It allows you to sit with uncertainty and discomfort, knowing that clarity and resolution will come when you remain faithful to yourself. It is not impulsive. It is thoughtful, deliberate, and rooted in a deep understanding of what you can and cannot carry. Ultimately, courage transforms the way you view love, relationships, and yourself. You begin to see that courage is not the opposite of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. You understand that stepping away from a situation, even one filled with love, is not a failure, but a triumph of authenticity. Courage teaches you that self-respect is not negotiable, that true integrity often requires sacrifice, and that peace and growth are worth the temporary discomfort of fear. A simple, practical takeaway to build this courage is to practice one small act of truth every day. Speak your needs honestly, assert a boundary gently, or take one step toward letting go of what no longer serves you. Each act is a reinforcement of your ability to remain aligned with yourself even when fear is present. Over time, these small acts accumulate, forming a foundation of courage that carries you through the most difficult choices with dignity and integrity. Change is never easy. It asks us to step out of the familiar, even when the familiar is uncomfortable. It asks us to embrace uncertainty, to move towards something that is unknown, untested, and at times terrifying. Yet change is the soil in which growth is planted. Without it, we remain stuck in cycles that no longer serve us, repeating patterns of sacrifice, compromise, and self-erasure in the name of love or loyalty. The hardest truth about change is that it often requires leaving behind what we have known, even when love is present. And this is what makes it so deeply challenging. The heart wants connection, continuity, and comfort, yet the soul whispers that staying is not sustainable. The inner struggle during times of change is real and raw. You may feel torn between hope and reality. Hope convinces you that the situation can improve if you try harder, love more, or wait longer. Reality, however, speaks with a quiet authority, reminding you that some things are not meant to last, and some relationships cannot thrive when the foundation is misaligned. You may wrestle with feelings of loyalty, obligation, and fear of being perceived as unkind or selfish. You may question yourself, constantly asking, am I overreacting? Am I giving up too soon? Am I abandoning what matters most? These questions are natural, but they often obscure the deeper truth that staying in misalignment is more damaging than leaving with integrity. One of the most profound aspects of change is the role of boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are declarations of self-respect. They are not punishments for others, they are affirmations of your own value. Boundaries define what is acceptable and what is not, what you will carry and what you will release. They create space for authenticity, for honesty, and for emotional well-being. Yet setting boundaries can feel radical when you have been conditioned to believe that love requires limitless sacrifice. Saying no, stepping away, or refusing to compromise your needs is not rejection. It is an act of self-preservation and integrity. The fear that often accompanies change is amplified by the unknown. You fear that leaving or setting boundaries will lead to isolation, judgment, or failure. You fear that you will be misunderstood, that your actions will be misinterpreted as cruelty, or that your own heart will break under the weight of loss. This fear is natural, but it is also misleading. Fear wants to keep you small. It wants to convince you that comfort and familiarity are safer than truth. Courage, in contrast, whispers that true peace and growth are found when you align your actions with your values, even when the path is unclear. Reflection is essential in navigating change. Take time to consider what you are willing to carry and what you are ready to release. Ask yourself, does this situation honor my worth, my growth, my peace? Observe the ways in which compromise or sacrifice has cost you parts of yourself, and honor those losses by committing to act differently. Change is not just about leaving, it is about consciously choosing what and who belongs in your life moving forward. It is about recognizing that growth requires letting go of what no longer supports your evolution, even if that includes people you care about deeply. A reflective line that can guide you through this process is, you don't need more hope, you need more truth. Hope can be intoxicating, convincing you to wait, to endure, or to continue sacrificing. Truth, however, is grounding. Truth allows you to see the situation as it is without distortion or denial. It is truth that creates the foundation for change. When you face reality honestly, you gain the clarity needed to make decisions that honor both yourself and others. Boundaries then become tools, not obstacles. They are expressions of integrity, not rejection. Practical steps can help you navigate change effectively. Begin by identifying one area where your boundaries have been unclear or non-existent. Observe how this has impacted your life, your energy, your relationships, your sense of self. Then define a clear boundary, starting with something small and achievable. Communicate it gently but firmly, with the understanding that it is a reflection of your needs, not a judgment of others. Over time, this practice builds confidence and reinforces the understanding that boundaries are not a punishment. They are a declaration of self-respect. Another critical aspect of change is learning to release attachment to outcomes. You cannot control how others respond to your boundaries, how they perceive your decisions, or whether they approve of your actions. You can only control your own choices and responses. This requires a deep trust in yourself and your capacity to navigate the discomfort that comes with change. Releasing attachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you acknowledge that your well-being is not dependent on others' reactions. It is an act of emotional independence, a step toward freedom and self-alignment. Change also involves embracing the emotional turbulence that comes with it. You may feel sadness, regret, or even grief for what is ending. You may experience moments of doubt, questioning whether you made the right choice. This is normal. Growth is rarely linear, and emotional discomfort is part of the process. Lean into these feelings without judgment. Allow yourself to experience them fully, understanding that they are signals of transformation, not failure. Each wave of emotion is a reminder that you are alive, that you are evolving, and that you are choosing authenticity over comfort. Ultimately, change is an act of courage and love. Love for yourself, love for the life you want to create, and love for the integrity of your heart. It teaches you that growth requires letting go, that boundaries are necessary for healthy relationships, and that peace and clarity come when your actions align with your truth. You begin to understand that staying in misalignment, even for love, is a slow erosion of the self. Walking away, setting boundaries, and embracing change are not signs of weakness. They are evidence of strength, resilience, and emotional wisdom. A simple, practical way to practice change is to take one conscious action each day that aligns with your truth. This could be asserting a boundary, stepping away from a situation that drains you, or engaging in self-care that reinforces your sense of worth. Each act, no matter how small, strengthens your ability to navigate change with grace and integrity. Over time, these actions accumulate, transforming fear into confidence, discomfort into clarity, and uncertainty into freedom. Growth is a quiet miracle that follows the courage to choose yourself. It does not arrive immediately. It does not appear as a sudden burst of clarity or happiness. Growth is slow, subtle, and sometimes imperceptible, like roots spreading beneath the surface before a tree blooms. It comes after the storm of fear, guilt, and uncertainty has passed, when the dust settles and you finally stand in the space you have created for yourself. This space is sacred. It is the place where your heart, once heavy with the tension between love and self-preservation, begins to breathe freely again. The inner struggle during this stage is deeply personal. You may feel waves of loneliness, moments when the absence of the familiar connection feels like an unbearable weight. You may question your choices, wondering if leaving was the right thing to do, if you misjudged the situation, or if your love wasn't enough. The temptation to return to what is comfortable, to what is known, can feel strong. This is a natural part of the human experience, the push and pull between safety and authenticity, attachment and freedom. The challenge lies in trusting that growth cannot occur within the confines of what no longer serves you, even when it feels like comfort. One of the most profound truths about growth is that it allows love to exist in a healthier form, both for others and for yourself. Walking away does not erase the love you have felt, it transforms it. It teaches you that love is not about possession or dependency. True love, even when it must be released, honors the other person while also honoring your own life. It is love that does not demand sacrifice to the point of self-erasure. It is love that recognizes your value, respects your boundaries, and nurtures the part of you that has always needed care, attention, and protection. Reflection is essential during this stage. Take time to observe how your heart has changed, how your perspective has shifted, and how your sense of self has grown stronger. Ask yourself, what have I learned about my needs, my limits, my capacity for love? Consider how your courage, your boundaries, and your choices have shaped your emotional landscape. Each challenge you faced, each moment of fear you endured, each decision to stay aligned with yourself has contributed to a deeper understanding of who you are and what you deserve. Growth is inseparable from reflection. It is born from the awareness of your journey and the lessons you carry forward. A reflective line that can guide you through this stage is, sometimes love stays behind so you can move forward. It captures the paradox that love, even when released, continues to shape you. It is a reminder that walking away does not mean your heart is diminished. It means that you are creating space for something greater, something more aligned with your values, your peace, and your growth. This line also reassures you that leaving is not an act of rejection, but an act of transformation. It reframes departure as a step toward wholeness rather than loss. Practical steps can help nurture this growth. Begin by reinvesting energy into yourself, the part of your life that may have been neglected while you prioritized others. This could be developing a new hobby, pursuing a personal goal, or spending time with people who uplift and support you. Engage in practices that build self-trust, such as journaling, meditation, or simply listening to your inner voice without judgment. Growth thrives when you actively participate in it, rather than waiting for time or circumstances to heal you. Another crucial aspect of growth is reclaiming your sense of identity. When you've spent years adapting, shrinking, or silencing yourself to preserve a relationship, walking away allows you to rediscover who you are at your core. This can be both exhilarating and intimidating. You may encounter aspects of yourself that you had forgotten or never fully embraced. You may confront vulnerabilities, fears, or insecurities that have lingered beneath the surface. Facing them with compassion and curiosity rather than judgment is essential. Growth is not about perfection. It is about wholeness, acceptance, and the courage to be fully yourself. Growth also involves redefining your relationship with love and connection. You learn that love does not require sacrifice at the expense of self-worth, that healthy connections are reciprocal, and that your capacity to love is enhanced, not diminished, by boundaries. You begin to understand that your peace, your clarity, and your integrity are integral to sustaining meaningful relationships. In this sense, walking away is not the end of love. It is the beginning of a more conscious, mature, and self-aware kind of love that includes both yourself and others. The emotional freedom that accompanies growth is profound. You begin to feel lighter, not because the love is gone, but because the weight of compromise, guilt, and fear has been lifted. You can love without being consumed, care without losing yourself, and connect without sacrificing your identity. Each day becomes an opportunity to practice self-respect, to honor your boundaries, and to engage with life from a place of authenticity and courage. Growth is the quiet strength that allows you to thrive, not despite the challenges you have faced, but because of them. Ultimately, growth is about integration. It is about bringing together the lessons of awareness, vulnerability, courage, and change into a cohesive understanding of yourself. It is the process of transforming past pain into wisdom, fear into resilience, and loss into empowerment. Growth allows you to live fully, love deeply, and move forward with confidence, knowing that you are capable of navigating life with integrity, compassion, and strength. A simple, practical way to foster this growth is to take one intentional action each day that aligns with your evolving self. This could be setting a new boundary, pursuing a dream, expressing your truth, or nurturing your emotional and mental well-being. Each action reinforces your self-worth, strengthens your resilience, and affirms that walking away, while difficult, has paved the way for a richer, more authentic life. Over time, these choices accumulate into a powerful momentum, guiding you toward a life where love, growth, and self-respect coexist in harmony.